Welcome. We're here with Chris Hodges. We're talking all things Veteran Finance Collective. And so thanks for being here today. Really great to have you in studio, Chris.
Absolutely, man.
I wanted to start things off. You and I go way back, obviously, but
Yeah.
for someone who's maybe meeting you for the first time, who are you and what do you do today?
Yeah, awesome, man. So I'm a father and a husband, first off, veteran. Been married to my wife for 18 years now. I had to pause to make sure I got that correct. But 18 years we've been married, been together for 20 plus years, friends before that. Lucky to be married to my best friend. Got two daughters. I've got one at home still, one that's off and married. Her and her husband, he's a soldier. And so they're stationed down at Fort Hood or Fort Cavazos, depending on when you've served. But yeah, first and foremost, that's it. Veteran, like I said, myself, business owner, and just all around veteran advocate.
Wow, that's very impressive, man. And I love how you led with father and husband. That's incredible. What did your career look like before VFC? What experiences most shaped how you show up for people now?
Yeah, man. I'm kind of all over the map. I'm gonna be honest. So I don't like to stay in one place, sit still very long. I have done just about everything you'd think that I wouldn't or shouldn't do. Obviously served in the military for 9 years. When I got out to use my GI Bill, went to school, and I was a veteran advocate for the education benefits.
Oh,
So I actually taught classes. I went to base. I worked in different facilities, just teaching service members how to utilize their veteran benefits for education, right? How to go to school. Used mine to get my master's degree. Once I got my master's degree, I started working in finance, right? Never in a million years would I thought I was going to work in finance, but I started working in a bank as a branch manager and just turning branches around. So I was in South Florida and they literally took this guy who had no background in finance other than he had a master's degree and plugged me into the biggest failing branch there was that they were expecting to close. It was in a rough area, man. It was not a good area at all. Getting knocked off like every other week, and I turned it around, and that's not bragging or ego. It's just I was blessed to have a good team that I could lead to success. And once we turned that bad boy around, they said, "Wow, you're onto something. Let's put you in another one." Right.
okay.
So as much as I thought I was going to step up and I had earned my place, they're like, no, you're onto something. I did it for a second time. And then after that, when the third one rolled around, I was like, you know what, maybe I'm going to choose something else to do. I started getting into veteran advocacy for mortgages. I had
Okay.
really missed being a veteran advocate at that point. And I had a company reach out to me. There was a really large nationwide company. And they said, look, you still have some great connections at the different bases, different units. And we'd love to have you come in and help us grow our footprint and grow where we have branches for mortgages, right? And speaking to veterans about their benefits when it comes to VA home loans. So I started doing that. I was a national director of business development for this company. And basically, we would go into areas and we would help establish a mortgage branch. We would hook them up with base access. We would hook them up with realtor relationships just so that they were set and they could be successful. And we did that through doing classes and teaching veterans and active duty about their benefits. Did that for a few years. And my wife, who had worked in the industry since I met her, was like, you're kind of a knucklehead. Like, why are you going and building these things for other people? Why don't we do it to where we have control over how we're helping veterans, right? Because that was one of the issues that I had with that company is they just weren't leading with helping, right? It was all
Okay.
over in their name and they were, don't get me wrong, they're a great company, but almost all of them were non-veterans themselves. And they were just kind of taking advantage of that piece. And there was some stuff with that I didn't love. And so my wife said, why aren't you just doing this yourself so you can control it? So that's what we did, man. Went out and started our own mortgage thing. And we've been rolling with that for quite a few years now. And that's my background.
So looking at that incredible experience, and I can totally see how it shapes different ways that you show up, and it almost sounds like your experience in baking, it was the reward for hard work is more hard
More
work.
hard work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go do it again.
Yeah.
No, that's incredible. Why do you think people trust you with something as important as their finances or their...
I think just from a standpoint of, I'm caring, man. I'm approachable. But I don't pull any punches. Like it's just no bullshit. I'm going to shoot you straight. I'm going to tell you how it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And I think that lends itself to veterans and service members and just the fact that they know they can trust somebody who's going to give it to them straight. It's not always what you want to hear.
Most of the time when you're having those difficult conversations, are you also coming up with a realistic plan or what it will take? Or
Yeah.
here's our starting point. good, bad, or ugly, right? No judgment around that. But and here's where we need to go, and it's gonna suck, and it's gonna be hard work, but you can do this like thousands of others have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's been the key, right? Is that there's a plan in place. I'm not just going to shoot your dreams down. I'm not going to pop your balloon. I'm not going to say, hey, it just sucks. Good luck. It's not right now, but here's the plan on how to get out and to get into where you want to be. And that's been the key.
Okay, meeting people where they're at.
Yeah, 100%.
I love that, man. What's a misconception people have about what you do for a living? And what do you wish veterans understood at a higher level?
Yeah. So I think from specifically a mortgage standpoint, I think the biggest misconception is that you have to have the lowest rate, right? Like society in general, I think in society, all we want to talk about is the lowest, absolute lowest rate. Where I see people get into trouble with that is that companies will market to that, right? And so my first primary example of when I bought a home, I was approached, I was told to go to this lender that was a partner of a real estate agent. And I didn't know her. I just trusted my real estate agent to send me to somebody good. This lender I thought was great until I got to the closing table. She quoted me a rate. I thought it sounded good. I get to the closing table 30 days later, and I'm starting to question why there's $8,000 specifically in something called points. And I didn't understand what that was. And what it was is that the rate she had quoted me included a cost. I was buying that lower interest rate.
Okay.
Nobody told me that. And I didn't find out to the closing table, and it was costing me more money out of pocket, even though I had a VA loan. So I would have wanted to be given the choice, and I think that's the biggest misconception I see is in society, we're so fixated on the lowest possible rate that we don't ask the question, how are you getting to that rate? And why is that the rate? I'd like to have the choice. I'd like to have the choice of, do I want to pay it down or do I not? And what is the difference between that and maybe the price without or the rate without buying it down? And does it change my monthly payment that much? Those are all things I think we should know. And unfortunately, we're just asking the question, what's the rate, right? Because that's what we've been trained to do.
Well, and that's what the news has told us to do.
Yeah.
And no, I totally agree with that. I want to go back and I'm going to ask you that question again, and I want to get an answer from a VFC perspective as well, right? So Chris, what's one of the misconceptions people have about your line of work that you're doing with VFC? And what's something you wish the veterans just understood better?
Yeah, I think that finances are a living, breathing thing, right? And I think that one of the biggest misconceptions I see out there is that I screwed up and I'm just doomed, right? My credit's shot, I'm doomed. I've got a lot of debt and it is what it is. Maybe I missed some payments. Maybe I charged off. Maybe I had a vehicle repossessed. And it is what it is. I'm doomed, right? And I want veterans to understand that this is a living, breathing thing that can be fixed. Everything can be fixed. I've been there myself. I've been through every single thing you can do. I'm literally a walking stereotype in my younger career in the military, right? So I think I'm an example of that, and I want to share that with people, and I want them to understand that it's not the end. Like, you can definitely climb out of this.
Oh, it's amazing. I appreciate you sharing that. So, Chris, you as a person, what's your personal connection to veterans or military families?
Yeah, so served 9 years myself in the Navy. Would have served more, was medically separated. And it wasn't a full 100% disability, type thing. It was a situation where I was a Navy air crewman and rescue swimmer, aviation rescue swimmer. It was the whole point of joining the military, right? Like, I knew when I was going in what I wanted to do. And had a couple knee surgeries and was basically told I was losing my flight status. They offered me another job, but I was going to be essentially a personnelman, shipboard, sitting in a desk somewhere deep in the hull of a ship. And I thought, there's no way I want to do this. So they gave me an opportunity to go ahead and get out. If that wouldn't happen, I'd stayed 20 plus years, right? I love the service that much. So that's my personal connection, but I've loved, I think, helping everybody as far as veteran wise and service members active duty ever since I got out. It allows me to stay connected and try to give back to something that helped build me, right? I think the military helped me grow up a ton, especially I think if you ask my parents, they'd tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
Long history of military in my family, but I think the biggest thing is just how it helped me grow up and how it helped me become who I am today. And so giving back, doing that whole reaching back down to lift others up is just huge to me.
So you brought up a really cool thing about asking your parents if it changed you, right? And this kind of military lineage in your family. Do you think the Chris Hodges who enlisted in the Navy however many years ago, versus the Chris Hodges that owns multiple companies and has the level of success you have, do you think that kid that enlisted in the Navy could have ever seen the opportunities you've been able to create and give for yourself?
I don't think he had a chance. No, I
Okay.
think honestly, if you would have gone back and asked him as he was in boot camp or graduating boot camp, if this was a possibility, I think the answer would be a resounding no. He'd probably laugh at you.
Okay.
Right. And I think that from myself, right? And just where I was at that point in my life, I think, again, my parents would tell you that. And I think my wife would even, because there's been times that she's like, you just decided to do what? So, but yeah, I think resounding no, he would have had no idea.
Okay. So I think it's a nod to your evolution and growth as a person and thinking big, but also kind of a nod to the military of kind of the rewiring we all get.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's amazing. Is there a specific moment or experience that made you realize that veterans were being underserved, let's say financially?
Yeah, I think on a lot of levels, yes. This Veteran Finance Collective came about because of, I think, on the daily recognizing that there's just places where veterans are being underserved or not taken care of in the proper way. And so that comes across in every avenue of finance. There are so many predatory individuals out there, predatory companies that specifically are just looking for veterans because whether they think they're an easy target or whether it's the inflow of money they have, right? So if you're active duty, unless there's some major shutdown, you're guaranteed your paycheck every single day or every single month. As a veteran, if you have any form of disability, or even if you don't, some of these companies are working at ways to try to get you, disability, and then they're taking a chunk of that. So for me, it was really big to be able to partner with these vetted individuals that are doing it right and actually taking care of people as opposed to doing it the wrong way. And it's a dollar sign.
Yeah. There's so many companies that, if your logo is red, white, or blue, if there's a flag
Right.
on it, we through that veteran lens, like, oh, well, these guys must be trustworthy.
Right.
So what you're saying is you're actually, VFC is doing this with vetted partners, all with the same mission, is to serve at the highest level.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. What frustrates you the most about how veterans are typically treated in the financial or benefits world?
Yeah, I think, like I said on the previous question, they're dollar signs, right? Like I think so many of us, no matter who or what avenue of finance you're looking at, that company is just looking at you as a dollar sign. Veterans on average, pay their bills more frequently. The veterans on average have more stable income. And so there's all these different statistics that lend themselves to why a veteran would be the atypical, borrower, client that one of these services would want. And so I think from that standpoint, like it's just trying to serve that and be a better steward of our business.
Yeah, it sucks seeing people getting preyed on.
Yeah.
Or mistreated or told that it ain't for them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I've seen a lot of those scams before, and it's like, it always seems to be conditional.
Yeah.
And it's never, come here, we're going to get you squared away, whatever that needs to look like. It always seems conditional. Well, if you have these types of injuries, or if you have this type of credit score, if you have this type of, then they'll decide to put for. Right. So it sounds like VFC, you show up as you, and there's a starting point and an end point. You get to kind of figure out what that is.
Absolutely.
That's powerful, man. I think that's great. So, Chris, how did the group of guys come together and start putting this idea of VFC together?
Yeah, so I've been blessed and have been able to align myself with like-minded individuals, right? People I know, like, and trust. And these individuals span at different levels or different industries within the financial sector, right? So whether that was through insurance, whether that was through veterans benefits, whether that was through real estate or lending, financial advising, all of it. And so the issue, like I mentioned before, was that we're just daily bombarded with things that are predatory. And it was a matter of, we're all vetted and we're all dealing with the same thing. And it's how we get our message out. It's how we help the veterans and how we help the service members. And how do we cut through all that noise of all the BS that's out there? And so it was just a matter of kind of thinking about it through some time off through the holidays and sitting down with these gentlemen, afterwards and saying, we have an opportunity here to do this right and to really take care of people and follow something that's a passion for ourselves. And, when you can do that, when you can turn something that's, work related into a passion, then it's not work anymore, right? It's
Right.
actually fun. You guys can enjoy doing it. And so, that's what it was born out of, was just really following our hearts and wanting to take care of our fellow veterans and service members. And once we got together and started talking about it as a group, it was just like, we're onto something. We got to make this happen.
Yeah, and that's actually right. Feeds right into my next question. Is at what point did this go from a conversation or a mastermind and turn into like a new mission? Like this has to exist.
Yeah, I think it was once we all started talking and realizing that we were all feeling the same way, right? We were feeling the same way about the predators out there, and we were feeling the same way about the veterans we had interacted with and what they were dealing with, and how we could all combine to guide them and to help them at each facet of this journey, right? And meet people where they're at, because not everybody needs the same level of help. Some people need help with credit repair. Some people need help with, what do I do with my finances? What do I do with my TSP once I get out? What do I do with my 401k? How do I invest properly? Should I invest in real estate? Should I invest in stocks? Should I buy Bitcoin? There's so many different people at so many different levels that need help. And as a group, we're more powerful than just an individual.
Yeah, no, I love that. And so it sounds like this got real when you got the right people in the room.
Absolutely.
Okay. Through these conversations and stuff, was there a problem or something that you guys just all latched onto and decided it was unacceptable if we keep ignoring this?
Yeah, I think it's the noise. It's the predatory companies out there, right? And it doesn't matter which side you're in. If you're in insurance, if you're in education, if you're in veterans benefits, if you're in mortgages and real estate, you're dealing and bombarded with all of this just bad information. Bad gouge is what it is, and it's somebody trying to take advantage of you. And so I think the big thing was, how do we cut through that? How do we cut through that for our brothers and sisters that are serving?
Well, and one of the other things I think that's unique about VFC is, we talk about these different disciplines. You're having to cut through the noise on all the garbage that's out there about benefits, and then go do it again under insurance, and then go do it again under mortgage, then go do it again on whether you deserve a home for you and your family. What I see VFC doing is allowing people to tune in to a single message that is for them by people that want to serve them for the pride of being able to serve them, because they've earned it. And we've all gone through this ourselves. That's a lot of this came together.
Well, it's the vetted piece of it too, I think, because who do you trust and who do you know? And to your point earlier, there's so many companies that know if they make their colors red, white, and blue, if they slap a flag on it, if they say veteran this or that all of a sudden now it's going to gravitate towards us, right? Or we're going to gravitate towards it. And so I think knowing that you've found a place where you truly have those that have served and have gone through the things you've gone through, that have clawed their way out, and they can now reach back and help you out, that's huge. And we're all vetted and we're all passionate about helping each other.
Love that. Love that. So just to kind of finish this part up, why build VFC instead of just doing your individual discipline at the highest level?
Power in numbers. And that's really what I think it boils down to, right? I can't help somebody on, insurance. I can't help somebody with their education benefits. That used to be my job. It used to be what I did, but that was over 10 years ago. And the world of education benefits for the VA has passed me by. It's changed, right? When I served, and I'm going to age myself, it was the it was the Montgomery GI Bill, and now it's the post 9/11 GI Bill. So those things have come and gone, and I need somebody who knows that and can dive into that deeply. And I would be doing someone a disservice if I tried to guide them now. So the power in numbers and the group coming together and saying, we're going to do this collectively to help our veterans, to me was the whole main point.
I love that. That's fantastic. So, Chris, in plain English, what would you say the mission of the Veteran Finance Collective is?
I would say that we want to educate and help our fellow veterans to essentially overcome any financial hardships they're having, understand the benefits that are available to them, and start building generational wealth. I mean, for me, It's filling the gap between the lack of education and the benefits and what's available to them.
That's excellent. I know a lot of times, and this is my personal opinion, but the military is so good at keeping us mission ready on mission. It was kind of a single scope thought process there. But when you ETS and you get out, I mean, one day you're in the military, the next you're not.
Yeah.
And of course, depending on your age, your maturity level, I think comes down to a lot of it, right? Um, Now you're back in the wild, so to speak, with no plan. So, let's say I didn't have any, damning financial issues or anything else. Would VFC still be a place for me to connect with if I was just trying to figure it out?
Yeah, absolutely. We're not just for somebody who's struggling. Again, we have experts at all levels. So we have folks that can help you if you're just beginning your journey. We have folks that can help you if you're really struggling with where you're at. We have folks that can help you if you've already started and you're midway through, or, you've already got a robust savings, robust investment portfolio. We have people that can help with that and just give you some tutelage and guidance to make sure that you're on the right track, right? So it's for all levels, and we'll meet you where you're at. It's not just a last resort.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Um, in the mission statement, it says that VFC stands in the gap. What is that? What do you think that actually means in real life for a veteran? Let me rephrase that. So in the mission statement, it says "stand in the gap," which I think is really cool, very intentional language. What do you mean by that? And how does that show up for veterans?
Yeah, I think it's, I guess, very intentional, the reason we put that there, right? And I say the gap because you mentioned earlier in one of your questions, when you're ETSing, when you're getting out of the military, there's a lot of focus on transition. But what I don't think there's a focus on is managing your finances. It just cut and dry. There's not, right? Even when you're active and you go, let's say, to ACS, the Army Community Services, and maybe you're struggling with your finances, one thing or another, 9 times out of 10, and this is not a knock on any one specific person or anything like that, but 9 times out of 10, the person that was hired and that is sitting at ACS or whatever your branch service was, is somebody who has a master's or a doctorate's degree in that, but has no practical actual, experience. They haven't been in your shoes. They never served in the military themselves. And they have a degree that's great, but they've never been in your shoes. They don't know how to walk you through and understand and have empathy for what's actually going on. The second piece of that is, again, when you get to the ETS, we're not spending any time talking about your finances. We're just saying, hey, this is how you write a resume, buddy. Here's some places to go check out getting a job. We're gonna have a job fair on Friday. Come on by and check it out. Lockheed will be here, And so those are great things. And again, I'm not knocking that, but if we want people to truly have some financial health and start building generational wealth with the benefits that have been provided to them, we need to start teaching them about that. So when I say stand in the gap, when the company talks about standing in the gap, we're filling that. That's what we want to do, is fill that gap between, I don't know what's going on, and look at where I'm at now.
Yeah, it almost sounds like the difference between like theoretical advice versus practical tools. This is you should know how to balance a checkbook, or you should know where your finances are. We can make that statement in a whole trail all day long, but if I'm not going to say, and here's how you can do that,
Right.
or here's a tool to do it, again, it's theoretical. They get to check the box that they said it, and they get, again, there's no fault. That's not their job.
Right.
So standing in the gap. I love that. What makes VFC fundamentally different from traditional financial services or one of the million veteran programs?
Yeah. So the biggest thing for us in doing this is we've been there and done that, right? And so I'll dive deeper into this than some of my colleagues might want me to. But when I say I've been there, I've been there. I've made all of the mistakes that you can make as you are a young service member, or maybe midway through your career, right? So came back from my first deployment, had been in the military for about 1.5 years at that point. Never had credit in my life. Rolled down to a dealership because playing softball on base, somebody's like, yeah, I work over here. You should come check it out sometime. Rolled down there. Of course, they put me into a brand new Nissan Xterra. Again, I'm dating myself, but this was when Nissan Xterras had first come out and they were the hot shit, man.
Yeah.
So they put me into this thing, man, and payments were like, $5 something a month. I could afford it. What else did I have is, just a young E4. But what ended up happening after about 2 months of payment is I started realizing that buying beer in the barracks was a lot more fun than paying my Xterra payment.
Yeah.
And there was nobody really guiding me on that. And I just went through life and I would skip a payment here. I might go 2 months without making a payment. I was just flying by night, right? And then, you're in the military. I'm transferring every couple of years. It never caught up to me. And I finally got to a point where I just wasn't making that car payment because why? What are they going to do? There was no ramifications.
Right.
So long story short, I trashed my credit, man. Like it was in bad shape. I was, repossession of a car, even though they hadn't taken it on paper, it was a repossession.
Yeah.
And it was really at a point where I was like, I'm not going to need credit. I can always live on base or, whatever. I'm fine.
If I got my Social
I
Security
literally, right. And so I literally had just ran that mug into the ground. Right. So when I was getting into a relationship with my wife and we were looking at building a life together, there were some real conversations about credit and about where things were. And I started having to deal with reality and start trying to dig myself out of the hole. But there was nobody there to guide me. There was nobody there to lead me. I sought some help and the help was really just bad advice, bad gouge, right? And so it took me probably 3.5, 4 years to literally crawl out of the hole I had dug myself. And I did it by just trying to knuckle down and pay every little thing I could, not knowing that once something has gone to a certain point, you're not getting any benefit of digging in and paying it. So I had no guidance, right?
Right.
If I would have known what I know now, there's ways to build plans and focus on things that are actually going to matter and move the needle. But for me, I didn't have that. And so it's important for me, and why we're different than a lot of companies is we want to take the time to build that plan for you. We don't want to just say no. We don't want to say you're not qualified. We don't want to say this is the only option. We want to actually help you because we've been there. I want to help that next person because I had to do it on my own. And now we have tools to do it better and smarter, right? So we can work smarter, not harder. We want to help you up through that. And it may take us time. It may not take us time. It just depends. And that's what we want to build for you. And that's what I think sets us apart and makes us different than other financial organizations or veterans groups that are out there, is we're taking the time to say, look, we've been there. We've made the mistakes. We've figured out how to get out. And now we know there's tools to help, and we want to help you with that.
Nice. It's funny. I think, there's probably a dozen, if not more, internet memes out there of the E3 or the E4 and the new Camaro.
Right.
It's like, Sarge, even through it and take a gas. Only 21% interest on this bad boy, Yeah. Well, and again, no guidance, or at least there wasn't when I was in, which is 1,000 years ago, but yeah.
No, I got in trouble because then they found out what I was doing. And so it was like, yeah, you're a rock. And, now I'm having to go do actual command counseling because I can't manage my finances. And so there was no help at all. And it was more of a punishment. So again, and not to, relive or hash out my stuff, but I think, again, that's the difference. We've been there, we've gone through these things. And so we know how to get out and actually give you a hand and a leg up versus just telling you good luck.
Yeah. No, that's important, man. Who would you say VFC is not for?
So I think we're not for the sea lawyer. And I don't know what other branches call the sea lawyer, right? I was in the Navy. The sea lawyer is the guy who, he bought a house once. And so he's going to give you all the advice on what you should do to buy a house, right? Or he invested in Bitcoin and he made this much money, so he's going to tell you how to invest. We're not for that guy because they think they're the expert, and we're not going to be able to ever give them any advice that they want to take because it's not what they want to hear. It's not in line with what they've done. I think we're also not for rate shoppers or premium shoppers or the person that's just looking to get the lowest price, the lowest deal. And our services aren't necessarily costing any money, but if you're looking at, I just want the lowest insurance rate premium, or I want the lowest cost to invest, or this or that, we're not necessarily for those people. We're for people that want to actually fix what's wrong, right? I'll give you an example of debt relief. Debt relief is a hot button issue for me, and I'm sure we'll get into that later. But there's a lot of scams out there on debt relief right now, and it sounds great, right? Are you $30,000 in debt? Well, we can get you out. If you're a veteran, call this number, right? It doesn't cost anything. It's legit. It's real. There's TikTok videos for days about it. But the issue is what they're doing is they're having you default on it. And then once you default, they're settling for less. That's what they're doing. And so they're trashing your credit even worse. I mean, your credit might be bad already, but there's a way to climb out of it properly. If you do this, will your score increase over time in 2 or 3 years? Absolutely it will. But it's going to be different because it's looked at on your credit report different. You know, we look at credit reports all day long in my line of work. And I have these people that are like, it's so great, I'm doing debt relief. And then I find out that their score is now in the 400s.
Right.
And all it's showing is that on the 10 lines of credit you have for the last year, you haven't been paying it. That looks really bad. So yeah, congratulations, you're not going to have to pay the whole amount back. But you're also not going to get credit for the next couple of years. And I think the people that only want to hear what they want to hear, right?
Okay.
I think that's the other key piece to that, is that I deal with a lot of folks across the board, and I hear it from my partners, is that there's a lot of people out there that want help, but only if it's the help that aligns with what they want. They
Right.
want the answer to be, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so you give them the truth and you give them the answer, and it's not, well, that's hard, or that, I don't like that answer, so I'm not going to listen to it. And then they go do it the hard way. We still want to help those people, but if that's your mindset, then we're probably not going to be able to help you.
So on the flip side of the question I just answered, it almost sounds like the people that VFC is dialed in for at a high level is people that are serious about making a change, or more importantly, taking the next step that moves them to the life they want for them and their families.
Right.
Okay. I like that. Someone who's willing to have some accountability and own where they're at and say, not the end of the world. Let's keep going.
Let's figure it out. Yeah.
I love that. Very cool. That's a great job, Chris. So, Chris, if a veteran comes to VFC confused, frustrated, or let's say they've been burned before, what happens next?
Yeah. So everybody that comes through VFC is going to be assigned an advocate. The advocate's going to help kind of do a little bit of triage and find out, what are your needs, right? And it may not be triage, maybe that's the wrong word, but we're going to do an analysis. We're going to sit down with you and do an intake interview and say, what is your biggest priority need at this point in time? And then we're going to assign you to the right place, but we want to be with you for life. So that advocate stays with you. They don't go away. They're your point of reference. They're your guide through this entire process, and they can help you through all of the next steps. The biggest thing for us is that a lot of folks we are dealing with have been burned, right? And so it's earning their trust. It's letting them know that we are there for them and earning their trust to help them get to where they need to be.
Okay. And it sounds like you're helping them create a plan for them, not just shoving them in some program or some sausage mill, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? I love that. How do you protect veterans from bad advice, bad actors, or bad incentives?
So I think the big thing for us is staying, number one, ahead of the curve, right? So all of us in our individual industries work very closely with the VA and work closely with our state regulators. So we know what's coming down the pike. We know the right way to do this. We know what's available, and it's making sure that we're always in front of it. Now, I can't protect somebody from incentives. We can try. We can give them the truth. We can show them in writing. But we're not going to be able to get everybody, right? Because incentives are designed to do what they do, which is to attract and to pull you away. But through education, I think that's our biggest tool, is to try to show veterans and service members what the reality is.
Okay. So almost in the trench knowledge instead of just clickbait.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. I love that. What does success look like for a veteran on the other side of this process? You know, from kind of start to finish, or do you ever finish?
Yeah, I think that's going to be relative to who you are and where you're at in your journey, right? So success to one individual might be working on their credit and increasing their credit score. To somebody else, it might be, taking the first step into investment. For me, my vision overall is building generational wealth. That's a key thing for me. And I'll go back to my own personal story. When I was buying my first house, I was out of the military for a little over a year, and I had maybe $1,200 in the bank. Like I didn't have money, and I didn't think I could buy a house, I'll be honest with you, because I knew there were closing costs and things associated with the home, even though I was using a VA loan. Fast forward to 3.5 years later, I was getting ready to move. We were selling our house, and we made, after paying realtors, after paying everybody, about $60,000. I had $60,000 now that I was putting in the bank 3.5 years after I only had $1,200 in the bank. And that was the power of home ownership and how you started, or how I started personally, to build what we consider to be generational wealth. So my ultimate goal personally for people through VFC is, how do we help you start to build that generational wealth? How do we help you go from that young E3, E4 like I was, who is just doing everything you can to destroy your credit,
Right.
to being the head of household, to building wealth for not just you and your spouse, but for your children and for something they can pass down to their children. Now you're starting to leave a legacy. So for me, that's the ultimate goal for somebody who gets into this program. Now, not everybody's going to be at that point. So it's going to look different for everybody, but I think my vision would be, if we can keep you in the program and foster what you're trying to do, that's where we get you.
Yeah. Well, I also think a key component of some of that stuff too is, I mean, people don't start thinking about retirement until it's way past time for them to start thinking
Absolutely.
about retirement. You
Yep.
know what I mean? And I think a lot of people come to the self-realization of, I'm just going to be a Walmart greeter until I drop dead.
Right.
After, I'm done doing what I'm doing for a living. Or they think, well, that's off the table. I missed that boat. So I love the investment part of it. And I love that it could be for someone who is young and trying to get on the path, or it could be for somebody who's experienced and has wealth and has things, but maybe needs advice or a plan on how to utilize that at the highest level.
Right.
That's real power, I think, for helping people. So, Chris, why does this work matter so much to you personally?
So I think I've kind of explained some of my own personal stories. And so number one, that's one of the big reasons, is what I went through personally. I don't want to see anybody else go through doing it the hard way. Where this really started to hit home for me is when my daughter married a young soldier, right?
Okay.
And I started thinking about their life. And if I could start helping them now and start guiding them now, then they're going to be leaps and bounds ahead of where I was, because I didn't start taking a lot of this seriously until I was getting out, or I was already out of the military. So that's where it became very urgent for me, is watching them go through their lives and the little tweaks I could help them make, because I saw them start to make some of the same mistakes that I had made. So that's where it became really personal.
Okay. And it's almost like a calling for you now.
Right.
Yeah. That's powerful. So, what would you want a veteran watching to feel or to know after hearing your story?
I'd want you to know you're not alone and that you can do this.
If VFC didn't exist, what would veterans be missing out on?
A trusted voice, a trusted friend, a trusted hand up, a trusted vetted company that could actually give them sound advice that's been there and done that.
And it sounds like it's sound advice in their best interest, not a company's best interest.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Every veteran needs to hear that their finances are a living, breathing thing, and it's never too late to change the course you're on.
Perfect. What's the biggest mistake veterans make about leaving service? Or when they leave service, probably a better way to.
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake, I could talk about this for a long time, but I think the biggest mistake that veterans make when they leave service in regards to their finances is they think that I don't want to say they think it's over, but the damage has been done and they can't climb out, right? That's the biggest thing. I think there's a lot, though, that I would go back to, is what's missing generally is the camaraderie and the friendship and the people that have been there. And from that aspect, I think the biggest mistake they make is not looking for that and knowing that it is out there, knowing that it is somewhere and we can help them, right? I heard a quote the other day that the hardest part of transitioning is not the work, it's the people. It's the people you come into contact with in the civilian world. That's the hardest part for a veteran to get over and to deal with. So I want people to know we're here and that we're like them and we can help them through their financial aspects, whatever that might be.
I know when I first got out, I think one of my biggest missteps was I didn't have a real plan. You know what I mean? I got accepted to school, so I was going to catch this, the fall semester. And I was more excited about not having to wake up early, not having to shave, and this money is going to be coming in for school. No plan. I think I was equally excited to, going home to a girlfriend and stuff too. So there was no plan other than, well, I guess this is what I'm going to do. So I think having somebody to help you build a plan is important as well, because that kind of gives you the vision of what you need to do. And just being a service member, the military is excellent on helping us execute different things, provided we know what the mission is.
We know what the mission is, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's key. Like I hear so many guys now, because of the way the post 9/11 is structured, you get BAH, right, if you're enrolled in school. Well, the Montgomery GI Bill that I was on, that wasn't a thing. So we basically got money to pay our tuition back. So I went to school. I had to work at the same time to be able to support my family. Now I hear so many guys going, no, I'm going to go to school. And that's awesome. Go to school 100%. But I think to your point, have a plan, have a little bit bigger plan on how that transitions to later, not just I'm going to go to school and I'll figure out later.
Right. Yeah, I think that's important. And one of the powers with VFC is we can start working with those service members through their ETS process.
100%.
So this doesn't have to be a flip of a switch. Hey, you're out now. So
Right.
we can have these conversations on the front end. So that's powerful, and I think will help a lot of people from maybe making some of the missteps that we've taken.
Absolutely.
So Chris, what pisses you off about all this stuff the most?
I think the thing that pisses me off the most is treating us all as one, right? We're individuals. We're all unique. We all have our own stories. And some of us are officers with 26-year careers under our belt. Some of us served the minimum 4. Some of us might have gotten out after 2 years because we got injured. We're all at different places. We all have a unique story, a unique background. And what pisses me off is this industry loves to just treat us all as the same. And that's why I think VFC is different. That's what sets us apart is we're here to meet you where you're at, depending on where you're at in your journey, and we can help you with that.